and welcome to this week's art class. Now this week we're thinking about colour theory. Specifically we're going to be having a look at purple, and purple is a very good place to start because often when people are first starting out with watercolour they start building colour wheels, and those colour wheels can have a very different outcome depending on what colours you choose. So when we say red, not all reds are equal. So as I said, this week we're starting with purple, and if you wanted to mix a purple you might think, well, I'll mix a red and a blue hoping to get a sort of violet colour, but you might well get really quite a sort of muddy brown, and hopefully today you'll find out why that might happen. Right, now to test this out, to find these purpley violet colours, we're going to try 3 of our pinky reds and 1 of the orange reds. So this one is Rose Madder, and we'll put a nice dollop on there. This one is Permanent Rose, we'll put that there, and that looks a lot pinkier than that first one. And this one is Alizarin Crimson, which is a sort of staple but less popular now than it used to be. So 3 different reds but still very much pinky reds. And for the orange red we'll go with Cadmium Red, and you can see by comparison that is a lot more bright pillar box sort of orangey red, isn't it? So we're going to do our mixing with this Windsor Blue. This is the red shade as well, so it leans towards warm, and we'll put a nice big dollop there, maybe a little bit more of a dollop there, and we'll mix them all on the paper here. The reason why I'm doing this is that we can play around with the saturation. So while we're actually testing the colour, we'll be able to test it almost at its most sticky, straight out of the tube, but also a very watery version of. So let's start off with this first one, the Rose Madder. That's what it looks like here, and let's bring it along with the blue. So at this saturation you can see it's starting to make a nice violet colour, more bluey version there, and let's go very saturated here with a lot of the colour, and you can see it works better at the softer. So it is quite, can you see that purpley colour emerging? Let's try with the Permanent Rose. Once again, that's a sort of the soft violet version. Much softer and pinker, and it's making, can you see that lovely purple emerging there, and then the much darker bluey version, which I think works very well. This is the Alizarin Crimson. Let's pull it out a little bit in this direction. Much bluer, but it will make us a nice soft violet colour here. So out of the 3, I think I possibly like the Permanent Rose. I like the way the blue mixes with the slightly rosier version. This is a little bit harder, but you can see with those 3 pinky reds we've managed to get ourselves some interesting violets and indeed some purple. Right, now this is our orange red. Doesn't look very different at first. That's, if we can go quite pinky here, but you can see the orange in it when you pull it out and have it at its most dilute. But can you see already instead of turning into this lovely violet, it's actually turning into a grey. You're never going to get violet with an orange, and it's quite brown there. Can you see that brown? Now you can get something that sort of resembles purple if we make it very, very saturated, almost like black. And at that point there, can you see it looks quite purple? But if we take it away from the rest of the colour, you can see it is actually just a very dark grey colour, and a thinner version of it will just pull the blue out, and the orange is already gone. Let's see if we can add a bit more back. See that at that point it does look purple, but if we bring it over here, it's actually not. It's a sort of grey, and a very interesting grey. You know, you can certainly use that in your pictures. There you are, there's the brown there again. Brown leaning towards a purple colour, but when you take it away, you can see it's very much more a brown than it is a purple. And the softer version of it, more watered down version, is in fact very much a grey. Well, right now you can see that it's actually dried off a little bit more, and hopefully there's less sheen so you can see what's going on. This was the Rose Madder, Permanent Rose, Alizarin Crimson, and this was the Cadmium Red. And what you can see now that it's dried with the Rose Madder, we've got some lovely violets going on here and a darker purple where there's obviously more blue. The same is true of the Permanent Rose. With that, I think it's mixing. I think the mix is even better because the very pinky rosiness of the colour is giving us this beautiful flat violet, but also the darker versions as well, and a pinker one that seems to work very well indeed. And the two together can give us an almost black as well. The Alizarin Crimson is slightly less satisfying. But I think that works better in the sort of lighter versions of itself. So if it's a very, very light violet with slightly bluer, that seems to work a little better. But without a doubt, over this three, I think this generally has more. It's flatter and more interesting as a colour. When we're trying to achieve violet. Now here, hopefully you can see why the cadmium doesn't work. This is the Cadmium Red, which it's very bright like a postbox red, but the very lighter colour of itself, the dilute version, you can see is really quite orange. When you mix the colour together in a very saturated way, you can get almost a black. And indeed there's a sort of browny purple that seems to work, but I put a little bit over here, and you can see that if you lighten it with some water, if you dilute it a little bit, it sort of seems to be purple, but really what it is quite a dark muddy grey colour. So if you're thinking about spring flowers like hyacinths, wisteria, purple tulips, or even bluebells, because they can have quite a strong purple tinge to them sometimes, you have to be using the pinky reds as opposed to the bright orangey sort of cadmium type reds, because they obviously would be so wrong. Don't forget, you can also try different blues. French ultramarine works very well because it's a slightly reddish blue, so once again it will make nice violet type purples. Have a go and see how you get on. So have some fun, keep your colours clean and bright, and just enjoy the whole process of painting really loose watercolours. I do hope you've enjoyed this week's lesson. Please like and subscribe. If you've got any comments, leave them down below and I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.